Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hoffcast. This is episode 3, and I just want to start off today's podcast, today's episode, just how I do with every episode, and just welcoming everybody, both new and old listeners, and I just want to thank you all for all the support you guys have given me. And wherever you guys are listening, whether it be on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, or Spotify, just make sure to follow the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, leave a like if you guys enjoyed this content. It helps me out a lot. And also, don't be afraid to comment wherever you guys can. I'm always open to feedback. I'm always happy to hear from my listeners, just to kind of get a census of how things are going, how certain topics do with you guys as an audience. But so far, the first couple of weeks have gone very, very well. And I'm excited to be back for a third straight week. Things are going well. And another thing is that this podcast does have 2 social media accounts, both on Twitter and Instagram. You guys can head over to those platforms, type in @the Hoffcast, and hit that follow button so you guys can be notified as to when I am live or when the podcast is live and you guys can listen to it. As well as on my YouTube, if you guys subscribe and hit that notification button, you guys will be notified immediately when the podcast becomes live. And that's pretty much it for the social media portion. Today, we have a lot of interesting topics to talk about, especially at the beginning. There were a lot of updates I had to give you guys. As of last podcast, I mentioned a few things that were going to be happening this past week, so I'll give you guys updates on that. As well as I'm going to be talking about the huge Fortnite tournament that happened this past Friday with Friday Fortnite. It was the second straight week that went on. And today, I'm super excited because it will mark the first week that I have been able to bring a special guest onto the podcast to talk about a few things that I have kind of predetermined of what we're going to talk about, some things we're going to dive into of more of his expertise and things that are important to him. But I'll introduce him a little later on in the podcast because, this was definitely, I couldn't have thought of a better guest to put on my first podcast to come and represent somebody who is really important in my life and has influenced me in a major way to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do, especially as of recent. And then lastly, as we do with every podcast, I'm going to end it with some type of positivity / advice / life lesson. And today's will be about influence and the people you surround yourselves with. So kind of going back off of what we talked about last week with setting goals and surrounding yourself with people who are going to help you with those goals. Speaking more to the influence that not only you have on other people, but the people around you have on yourself. So make sure you guys stay tuned for the entire episode. You guys can skip around if you guys aren't super into Fortnite. You guys can go straight to the special guest that I have on. But of course, I would love for you guys to listen to the entire thing. I appreciate all the feedback you guys give. And without further ado, let's get into the first topic, which is basically just Friday Fortnite being the biggest topic, but a bunch of other updates that I have for you guys in relation to our last podcast. Last podcast I actually recorded last Wednesday, so it does seem like I've been gone for a while, at least for myself. I know you guys heard it on Sunday, but I had to record it on Wednesday because on that Thursday, I was going to be getting my wisdom teeth out, and if you guys didn't know, that was my biggest fear in life, just surgery in general, and so I was super worried about it. I remember recording the podcast the day before and just being there shaking, just thinking about what I had to go into. I don't know. I don't know. I was not really worried about the pain. I was more worried about getting knocked out, what that looked like. I've never been really someone who's been good with anything medical, whether it's shots, taking medicine, pills, that kind of thing. So I was just nervous. I was scared of what was going to happen. So woke up the next morning and we go to the wisdom tooth surgeon or the dentist, and they bring me back to this chair. They sit me back. I've heard so many different conflicting stories as to what people actually end up doing for their wisdom teeth, but maybe just because I'm a bigger guy, they didn't think that the gas would knock me out. So what they did was they had me sit back, and keep in mind that although I am a tough guy, I'm a strong dude, I'm a big dude, I was definitely scared. And when they sat me back, I had my eyes closed the entire time because I did not want to know what they were doing. I did not want to see what they were doing. I just wanted them to do it and have it be over with. So I'm sitting there, and this one doctor comes over, and she grabs, this anesthesiologist, she grabs my hand, and she just sticks a needle in it. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought whenever you guys get administered IVs, it's right in your arm. But she just stuck the needle right into my hand, And there was another gentleman who actually kind of looked my age, maybe even a little younger, who was strapping me to the table. So he was restraining me, and I had no idea what was going on. But as soon as I felt the prick from the needle, the anesthesiologist looked at me and said, "All right, now just pick a dream." I remember that's the last thing I ever heard her saying, and then I was just out. In a matter of seconds, and it felt like seconds, I didn't dream about anything. There wasn't it wasn't a gradual me going into sleep. It was just, I was just knocked out. So then all of a sudden, I wake up in a different chair, and this is just like a normal chair. It was a cushiony chair, and I was sitting next to my mom, and I look at her, and I'm like, wait, are we done? And I remember having the gauze in my mouth, and I woke up, and I didn't feel any pain whatsoever. And so I was just assuming this is just how the drugs work, the pain medication. They did a really good job with it, and so I don't feel any pain right now, but just wait a couple hours and I'm going to be dying. But I went home, I sat on my couch downstairs, and I was playing video games, watching Netflix, and I did the gauze routine for a couple hours until the bleeding stopped, which I think it stopped within the first 5 hours, 6 hours of me continuously putting in and taking out the gauze, as well as putting ice bags and taking medicine. But by the end of the night, there was no gauze in my mouth, there was no swelling, there was no pain, and I honestly felt fine. And it was funny, for the next 3 or 4 days, I really didn't have any pain. I was taking just typical Advil and Tylenol, and every day I woke up, it was a little sore when I would wake up, but I had no swelling. And as you guys can tell right now with my voice, I mean, I just still don't have any swelling, and it went really well. I was able to get off of just normal medication a couple of days ago, got back into working out, and things went really well. So I was scared for really no reason. I think that everybody has different experiences with their wisdom teeth. Obviously, my experience wasn't probably the same as yours or somebody that you know. But I told my mom, and I explained to my mom, it was probably the best it could have possibly gone, because I felt virtually no pain throughout the entire time. I had zero swelling, and there's always a chance that I might get infected, and I did everything that I was supposed to do with taking medicine, making sure I didn't eat any solid food that could get back there, made sure to do the saltwater rinses well, and it was awesome. So now that those all four are out, and not only that, when I say all four, they were all four impacted, which means none of them were showing. Sometimes it's easier and less painful if your wisdom teeth are already in, they'd have to extract them. Mine were completely inside my gums, including one on my left side that was growing at a 45-degree angle. So big shout out to the dentist that operated on me. They did such a great job. And also huge thanks to my family, especially my mother, who was by my side for most of the days after to make sure I was eating well. And luckily, it helped me kind of regulate my eating, and I lost 15 pounds. So thank you, wisdom teeth, for helping me get a little more healthy. And things are looking good for the future with my teeth. So that's my teeth update. Another thing we talked about in the last podcast was the NBA Finals, and I'm not going to say that I'm a fortune teller, but I said the Raptors were going to win in 5. I know I said that they would win the first 2, lose one at home where the Warriors were, and then win game 4 and 5. I know it didn't work out that way. I know they won game 1, lost game 2, and then they actually just came off of 2 straight wins away at Oracle Arena. But right now, if the Raptors win the next game, the Raptors 1 and 5. I'm just saying that was my prediction from the beginning. I know it didn't happen the exact same way that I think that it would, but this series has just been so surprising. You would think that for some reason that the Warriors would have some type of response to losing that first game at home. Klay Thompson was out. He got injured. He was coming back for the next game. You thought that they would take control of the series, get it back to 2-2, and then possibly get Kevin Durant back for game 5 and play a shootout match in the next 3 games to see who would win in 7. But right now, I don't think, and this is my prediction right now, I don't think anything can stop the Raptors from at least winning the series. I still think they're going to win in 5. There's a chance that they might lose and win in game 6 or lose both and then go back home and win in game 7. But no matter if Kevin Durant comes back or not, I personally think that the Raptors have kind of sealed their fate for the finals. They're going to win. I'm really hoping, again, that Kawhi Leonard ends up staying in Toronto next season. He's been offered a lot. But he's just continuing to be kind of a weird guy to the media. I know he knows what he's doing. It's kind of funny and comedic to watch, but I'm really excited to see what a lot of free agency is going to reveal about certain players in the league, see what kind of destinations they go to, which leads me into my next update, because just like I hope that a lot of high-level free agents go to LA, specifically the Lakers, to team up with LeBron, there is also still a chance they will be able to land some high-level free agents with the Clippers. And I am now officially, and I have been kind of officially but not officially moving out to LA, because I had this job with Red Bull, working out in Santa Monica, but I had been doing months of research to find a place to live out there. And if you guys have heard anything about LA, it's really expensive. If you'd go with the less expensive route, the quality is super, super bad. There are some bad areas that you want to stay out of. And up until this point, I hadn't solidified a place that I'm going to be living. So luckily, after a very long process, I actually officially got a place in LA. It's called National Apartments, and this is something that has been in the works since, I think, February. I've been in contact with this real estate company called Burgess and Garfield, and because of my early actions, they were able to help me get this really nice, luxurious place in LA that most people who move out there for the first time don't get because of certain restrictions, but they were able to look past those restrictions and grant me and my future roommate Erica, who's going to be working at Red Bull with me as well, this amazing, luxurious 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit, which I'm so excited to move into. But now that is official. And because of that, next weekend, Friday through Monday, I am going to be flying out to LA for a couple of reasons. Number one, I do have to verify my identity. I have to probably sign the lease. I'm going to be able to check out the actual unit that we will be staying in, and that will most likely happen on Friday. I'll also be touring the Red Bull headquarters, because we were not able to actually see the headquarters when we flew out there for an interview, because during the time that the other candidates were touring, we were actually getting interviewed even more by the managers because we had a better chance of getting the job. So that's how that went, which I'm very thankful for. But Friday is going to be spent going to Red Bull, touring the facilities, and then meeting up with the people who work at the real estate company and the manager of the apartment complex to make everything official. And I'm just so excited. And then on Saturday and Sunday, if you guys keep up with Fortnite, there is going to be the Fortnite Pro-Am, which is basically they pair people like Tfue, Ninja, FaZe Cloak, Tim the Tapman, Dr. Lupo. All of these guys, they get paired with a celebrity, which I think Ninja's playing with Marshawn Lynch, and there are some other high-level celebrities that'll be out there. But all of your favorite Fortnite content creators and streamers will all be there. I'm talking about Pokimane, Curse JD, anybody that you can basically think of that has a lot of impact in that community will be there, and I will be attending. So not only am I getting that done, I will also be attending the Fortnite Pro-Am this weekend. It was very cheap with the tickets because a lot of people can't even get out there in the first place, and it's in the super big arena, and I'm just ecstatic. I'm happy that this crossover happened where I can go out, get the business side done with, and also have a little fun as well. I'm going to be staying out there with my lovely and wonderful cousin, Chet Hoffman. I know Chet listens to this podcast. He's messaged me on a multitude of occasions, and I just want to say I'm super excited to come out and stay with you, hang out with you, and I also definitely very, very, very value your support for everything that I've done, but especially this podcast. I know you've been very supportive throughout this entire process, and I'm excited to come out and see you there. So if you guys want to see my perspective from the trip, if you guys didn't know, I have a YouTube channel. It's Hoff316. That's Hoff and then the numbers 316. If you guys go to that, I regularly post videos. I've done vlogs in the past. I've done an LA vlog. I actually vlogged when I went out for the interview. I've done a vlog in Pittsburgh. I've done a vlog in Florida. And for this trip, there's just so much that's going on, so much I can show you guys. You guys will see the apartment complex. You guys will see the Fortnite Pro-Am. Maybe I might actually get to meet some of the Fortnite streamers. That would just be, I can't even explain that experience if that happens. And I'll just be able to record anything cool that happens and give you guys a nice put together video of my trip out there to LA, because now it looks like in under a month I will be officially moving out there, and I will make a moving video and show me moving into the place, show everything that I ship out there, and what the place looks like when it's all done. But I'm definitely excited for that. And segueing that into the last topic of the first section of this podcast, being related to Fortnite, was that I'm going to be recapping the most recent Fortnite tournament, being Fortnite Friday, hosted by UMG Games, Keemstar, and FaZe Clan. 3 unbelievable either people or organizations that have done a lot for the Fortnite community. And so I'll probably just start by talking to you guys about what Friday Fortnite is, if you guys don't know what it is. So right now, Fortnite is currently in the competitive scene where they're doing competitions every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, for people to qualify for the solo and duo World Cup finals in New York in July. And so that's very, very superficial. It's very structured to the point where most people stay alive to the end of the game, and then it's absolute chaos, and people get lucky, they don't get lucky. And a lot of good players have already placed and will be going to compete for the ultimate prize, which will be spread out of a $30 million prize pool, which is the biggest prize pool in esports history. Now let that sink in. It is the biggest prize pool ever. And Fortnite's been able to do that because they've made $1 billion of revenue with you guys buying skins in the item shop and things like that, because they're obviously not making any revenue off the game because it's free. But everyone who's been spending stuff and spending V-Bucks in the item shop, they have been making loads of money to help fund their competitive scene, so that should be exciting. However, in my personal opinion, I like the Friday Fortnite structure better. I think that it does a better job of displaying who has the skills to play Fortnite based on what the game it is. I think that the competitive scene for Fortnite, where everyone just waits to the last circle to fight, is chaotic. I don't feel like that's a good representation of most games in Fortnite, since most players are actually casual players and they typically are playing in public lobbies. I love that format where it's public lobbies. However, I completely understand Epic Games' reasoning for not having that be the tournament style, because there is so much randomness that comes from that, where some people might be in a really, really bad lobby with really bad people, so they're not actually as skilled as the other people who could qualify. So they want to make it in a way that everything is equal. Everyone has the same chance of winning, even though, as you guys have seen a lot of the cheating allegations, there is still a lot flawed with the current competitive qualifying structure that leaves a lot of very, very, very talented Fortnite players out of the World Cup, and there's only a couple more weeks left to be able to qualify, and it looks like there will be some big names that will not actually end up qualifying. But Friday Fortnite does a kill race structure where 2 duos face off against each other, and their job is to go into a squad game. And yes, they are at a disadvantage, 2 versus 4 most of the time, but they're so good they just end up squad wiping most people. And the goal is to get the most amount of kills in 2 games. Now, what makes this tournament awesome and different from anything else competitive you see in any type of game is the fact that the players in this tournament are determined by, yes, skill is a factor, however, clout is the biggest factor in these tournaments. So people who have the most followers, people who Keemstar and UMG and FaZe Clan think that people would be excited to watch, and they have definitely not failed with that, especially with this past week, and I'll get into that a little later. But Friday Fortnite was something that began about 10 months ago, and it was really popular, and guys like FaZe Tfue made a name for himself, and that was when Ninja was becoming super popular, and so many different players made themselves known through that tournament, playing every single week on Friday in these kill style races. And not only that, but back 10 months ago, players were so bad that these pro players and these streamers were absolutely destroying the lobbies and showing how much higher skill they had than everybody else who was playing the game at the time. The reason that it stopped, and it's so terrible that it stopped, was that Epic Games did not really have any connection to Friday Fortnite. It was UMG Games and Keemstar partnering up to offer this type of entertainment. Epic Games decided to start having tournaments for Fortnite on Fridays, which left a lot of the content creators, a lot of the Fortnite pro players to be conflicted on what they wanted to do, what they would play in. And unfortunately, Keemstar took a lot of offense to that and decided to shut down Friday Fortnite for good. Now you're wondering, the last time this was played was 10 months ago, why did it start back up again? Now this goes back to something I talked about in my first podcast with the whole FaZe Tfue, or now just Tfue versus FaZe Clan lawsuit. There was this big deal about how FaZe Clan was taking money from Tfue, or they could take money from Tfue, but at the end of the day, statistically, they showed they only took $60,000 from Turner the entire time that he was a part of FaZe. So Keemstar came up with the great idea of asking for that $60,000 so they could say they took none of it by giving it to Keemstar to help run these Fortnite Friday tournaments for the next couple weeks for prize pools. Because I believe each week the winners receive $20,000, getting a $10,000 split for each winner. And so that was why Friday Fortnite was rebirthed. And I can just say it is back with a vengeance, because this thing is so exciting to watch. Both weeks have not let down any of the fans as far as excitement, comedy. There's just so many storylines each week. And the first week, Mr. Savage and Benji Fish won, and it was that there were two duos throughout the entire Fortnite tournament for Fortnite Friday that were just dominating the field, and that was Camo and Issa, who are both part of Ghost, and then Mr. Savage and Benji Fish, and they ended up meeting in the finals. And Mr. Savage and Benji Fish came from the losers bracket and ended up having to beat Camo and Issa twice. For those of you who don't understand that structure, why it's the losers bracket is because this is a double elimination tournament. There are 32 teams, and then every time you lose, you get moved down to the losers bracket. And then once you lose in the losers bracket, you end up getting kicked out of the tournament. So they ended up making it to the finals. And then this last week, 2 FaZe members ended up taking week 2 home with the victory royale. That was FaZe Jarvis, who, if you guys ask his brother K, he's absolutely insane. That's a little meme reference if you guys didn't get that. If you guys do, look it up. And his partner FaZe Tilt, who are both controller players, something that you would definitely not see in the competitive scene. A part of Ghost Aiden, who I think, since he qualified in duos, becoming the first controller player to qualify for duos. Most controller players are kind of pushed to the outbrink because they can't build against these competitive Fortnite players who play on PC with mouse and keyboard. But in Friday Fortnite, all bets are off. If you're good, you're good. And I do have to talk about the highlight of the tournament, which was another controller player showing that public skill and competitive skill are completely different. And this guy's name is FaZe Sway, so another FaZe member. FaZe Sway was going up against Nate Hill and Funk Bomb, who are both also part of FaZe. As you guys can see, FaZe is a very good is a common theme in this tournament, not only because it's run by FaZe Clan, but also because these guys are really some of the best and brightest players, and they're really young, and some are on controller, some are not. FaZe Sway is on controller. He's known for being an absolute monster when it comes to creative builds, but he decided to do something that I don't think anyone's ever seen, obviously in Friday Fortnite, but just rarely in any type of tournament style like this. He was playing with a partner known as Valkyrie. She is in 100 Thieves. Very nice girl. She just does not have the skill that some of these other players do, especially FaZe Sway. And in the second game, she ended up dying right away, and they were already down by a huge margin. So she said, I'm going to go host another streamer. Good luck. I'll see ya. And so they thought, there's no way he's going to come back. This kid, he's 15 years old. FaZe Sway went off for 28 kills. 28 in a squad match. There's 100 people in the game, and you have also 3 other pro teammates who you're playing against who can also get those kills. So I think Nate Hill and Funk, I think they got around like 10 kills that game. So when they died, he said all he has to do is get 15 kills, and they've won. At this point, he was at 13 kills. So think about that. 13 kills. Oh, sorry. He was at 14 kills. He was at 14 kills. Nate Hill and Funk Bomb said that he needed to get 15 to tie. And they must have done the math wrong, because what happened was there were 17 people left. And FaZe Sway went from 14 kills to 28, which is only 14. So at the end, we still thought that Nate Hill and Funk had won, but we came to find out that FaZe Sway had ended up winning by a single kill, and the reason he got the single kill over them was because somebody got rebooted. So if you guys didn't know, in Fortnite, you can reboot your teammates when they get knocked and killed, but you're still alive. You can go to the reboot vans, and they become part of the game again. So when they were 17, they ended up being 18, and he got 14 kills and ended up winning. It was absolutely insane, and just shows you how much young talent, how much controller talent there is. And if you guys haven't watched already, you guys definitely have to tune in for the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, since the Pro-Am is next week, there will not be any Fortnite Friday. And Keemstar is currently trying to get KSI and Logan Paul to square off in this style, pick a partner, and see who is better at Fortnite. As most things go, KSI decided to step up to the challenge and said he would do it. Logan Paul has still not been heard from. And that's usually how things go, because KSI is not afraid of anything, and he's going to put himself out there, and he likes to be challenged, and he likes to compete against other people. Logan Paul likes to be in control of things. He likes to do things on his time. If he feels like there's a risk to do something for himself, he's not going to do it, which obviously he's had some lapses of judgment in the past, but the reason he made the decision because he thought he would get some benefit from it. So I would love to see that partnership and that face-off next week, but I'm not going to say that it's going to happen. I think Friday Fortnite will then resume a week after that, so make sure you guys check it out. It's at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and you guys can do the calculation for whatever time zone you guys are in. And the last thing that I wanted to mention that was super interesting about this past week was two of the biggest personalities in gaming history were partnered together, which are PewDiePie and Ninja. PewDiePie's actually never played Fortnite before. I think he played Fortnite one time when he was battling against T-Series, and he decided to live stream Fortnite in order for him to get some more subs and beat them. But that was his very limited time that he played Fortnite. Obviously, Ninja's a god. And they got paired together, and it was the funniest first game ever. Ninja actually had over 200,000 viewers at one point at the beginning of the game. And in that first match where they played against C-Day and Noah's Noah, who was trolling and made his name FaZe Greg Paul, which is just another funny thing and what made the match more comedic, there was over 500,000 people watching in that round. And Ninja and PewDiePie actually ended up winning. And the funniest thing that happened from those matches was that Ninja ended up getting knocked, taken down, and finished. PewDiePie had to pick up his card and carry Ninja to the reboot van, and there were so many memes made about it, but they ended up winning and then going on in the second round to play another enormous gaming personality in Dr. Disrespect, who is a 6'8" giant who played at college basketball and has this alternate personality as Dr. Disrespect. If you guys watched the NBA Finals, he actually made it to Toronto in his entire getup, and there was a picture of him, which was super cool. But if you guys aren't excited by that, I don't know what will excite you. If you guys don't like Fortnite, obviously you guys might not want to watch it. But if you are a fan of Fortnite and didn't know this was a thing, so you've been living under a rock, or you've been kind of hesitant of whether you want to watch it or not, I promise you, if you watch it, you will be entertained, you will laugh, and you will just have a great time, because it's just so cool to see all these people who have worked their entire lives to become big names and have worked to get to where they are, to compete against each other, have a good time, and try to win some money as well. So that is that. And with all of that, there was a lot of updating, and now I get to go into my favorite part of this podcast, which is bringing on a special guest, because as I mentioned in the first podcast, I really want to give people who have made an important impact in my life a voice and give them a platform to explain their significance to me, but also give them a chance to tell my audience and the people who listen to me how awesome they are, because I want to spread positivity, I want to lift people up, and I want to bring people on this podcast who have been doing some amazing things and have also been enormous influences in my life. And this kid has by far been, aside from my family, because they're the biggest influence in my life, the single biggest influence over the past 4 years. Well, I actually say 2 years of college, because he's younger than me. So this special guest is Glynn, who proudly gets to wear the title of my best friend. And I'm not going to tell you guys a lot about him because he's going to come on and speak more about himself and what he has going on right now and what he sees in the future. But I will mention that this man is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. We both went to Penn. He is going to be a junior, so he's younger than me. But we were both in the Wharton School of Business, which I'm not bragging about this. This is just what's online. Is ranked the #1 undergraduate business school in the world. And he has a 3.99 GPA. I'm not going to explain where the .01 went away and how all of that happened, but I just wanted to mention that just in case he's too humble and doesn't mention it himself. But this is definitely the smartest kid I've ever met in my entire life. And we are going to be speaking to Chris Glynn. Chris, welcome to the Hoffcast. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be the first guest.
It's so weird because I'm like having this structured conversation with you in like a more professional manner, even though you know all of our encounters and conversations are typically a little less formal, but hopefully this will be a good experience. Hopefully you're ready for these answers. I know you've had a lot of experience with interviews, and those interviews that you've had have probably been a little more tough than what I'm going to hit you with, but I still have a surprise question for you at the end, so hopefully you're prepared.
Hope so.
So I think the first thing I want you to do is just let the audience know, the people listening to the Hoffcast all around the world, just anything about yourself that you think is important to share. You don't have to go into super detail. I know, and I acknowledge that you're a pretty humble guy, so I kind of gave you a little intro, but I want my listeners to hear a little more about yourself. So anything you would like to share, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of who I am, just a brief background. I'm from Stamford, Connecticut, nice city in Connecticut, and I go to University of Pennsylvania. I just finished up my sophomore year studying finance and accounting, so a little different path than Hoff's marketing path. And on campus, big club baseball player, played that with Hoff for about a year and a half until our season got canceled midway through because we had no interest. And so that was a bit of a bummer, but it's a good time also with the sports business club and an investment club on campus. So do those things as well. But yeah, that's my background.
So there we go. There's Chris. And as you guys can tell, he's a little more interesting than I am. So the one thing that I had mentioned in your intro and something that I predicted that you would not mention is the GPA that you have. Now, I mentioned that it was a 3.99, and a lot of the listeners are probably wondering where that .01 went. And so if you would like to share that story with the audience, that would...
Yeah, that's a great story. So I went into... After my sophomore fall, I had a 4.0, as you might imagine after the story that I'm going to tell. And that winter break, I ended up going on a Wharton-sponsored trip to San Francisco. It was like a technology trip. We got to go to all sorts of different cool companies. LinkedIn was the big one. We got to meet the CEO of LinkedIn, Jeff Weiner. And so at the end of the trip, we essentially had to write like an essay because the trip was graded. It was technically a class. I don't know why. And my group of 4 people, including myself, ended up getting a B- on the essay, which was pretty ridiculous, but that's what the teachers thought. And so I think the essay was worth like 40% of our grade, so we ended up getting an A- in the class, which was honestly pretty embarrassing because everyone else pretty much got an A in the class. But yeah, it makes for a funny story, I guess. A nice blemish to have.
Of course. And some of you guys might be wondering, how could a dumb football jock end up meshing with a super genius kid who's got everything going for him at the Wharton School of Business? So, I know how we met. You kind of briefly mentioned it in your bio about yourself, but can you maybe tell the specific story about how we met and what that looked like?
Yeah, sure. So, going into my freshman year, one of my big concerns was like not being able to play sports anymore. I'd been a huge baseball player all throughout high school and had a lot of great times with my teammates then. And then going into college, I was like, obviously I'm not good enough to play D1 baseball. So ended up trying out for the club team, luckily made it. And didn't know you at the time, but I guess you were probably at the tryout as well. Remember seeing you at a couple of the first practices. Don't think we talked at all. think I ended up missing the first series that we had that year. But then I remember you were at the second series as well. I think we had a couple conversations there. But then when we really kind of met and became friends was we were actually going down to a tournament at Fredericksburg, Virginia.
That's right.
It's
best place in the USA.
Best place in the USA, best place on the East Coast, best place in the world, honestly. And it truly is in the middle of nowhere. They got a lot of nice restaurants around there. I think we had
Red
Buffalo
Robin, the
Wild
best.
Wings. Red Robin was great. I remember you were getting some bottomless root beer floats. Probably contributed to the debt that we're in club baseball right now.
One too many.
But yeah, and we were roommates for that. There were supposed to be 4 people in the room, and there were 4 people in the room. But since the last 2 got there late, we ended up making them sleep on the floor, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, that's really when we met, and then we were also rode back in a car, I guess, with Fisher, who ended up getting a ticket from the speed checking helicopter or whatever. So that's kind of a funny story about that. But yeah, I mean, Fisher was not the captain at the time, I guess, but you know, he was the captain in this final year. So yeah, that's the story of how we met.
There we go. And just to add another detail to that story, we ended up being in the same hotel room, and there were 2 other people that were supposed to be staying with us, but we had 2 beds and 4 people. And, you know, me and Chris aren't about that life. We're not going to have another dude be sleeping with us. So we ended up claiming the beds and making the other 2 kids on our team, who we didn't really know, sleep on the floor. So
Yeah.
We were already making good decisions when we first met each other, and now we're here at the point in our lives that we are now. Thank you, Chris, for explaining a lot of, you know, how we met, who you are. This is now kind of my time to explain to the audience more of the significant impact that you had on me, specifically this past year, my senior year, that was super stressful for me. But as many of you guys know, I actually ended up landing a job at Red Bull, and I have to say that I could not have done it without Chris. And I'm not even saying this to gas him up or to get him big-headed, but there was literally nobody else outside of him and my dad, who actually had a few connections in the business world, to help me with this. But my dad was at home, so he couldn't really help me. He kind of helped me remotely with what he could do. But Chris was really, anytime I had to text him about my project that I was doing, if this was right, I presented to him a couple of times. And Chris, as you guys can imagine, and most people at the Wharton Business School are extremely busy, so he took time out of his day to review all of my material with me, to help me understand things that I started not to understand at first, but then was able to catch on. But that was kind of the story of my life senior year. I was able to take Finance 101, a class that I was dreading on taking, and waited until the last semester to take with Chris so he could help me get through that class, not by cheating. He made me work for it. He made me take the quizzes and understand the material, and that ended up working very well. But I can personally sit here and say that I would not be in the position that I am right now without Chris. And I mean, I tell this to every person I know, and you guys should too. Most of the successes you guys have in life are attributed not to yourself, but people around you. So it's always good to give back and to thank those people, because you can't do it on your own. And I acknowledge that, and I'm here to thank Chris for that, and he knows that. I reiterate that a lot. But a very funny story in relation to that was, it was after I went out for the final interview and we were waiting to hear if I got the job. It was a Friday night. California's 3 hours behind us on the East Coast. And so we were out to dinner around 7 or 8 o'clock, and I was showing Chris a statistics assignment that I had on my phone, and all of a sudden the phone starts to ring, and it says Santa Monica, California, and he turns the phone back to me and goes, "It's time." And so I pick up the phone. Charlie, who I'm hoping to get on this podcast in a future week, because he also has a lot to do with the hiring of me within the company and talent acquisition. But he gave me the call. They were in the conference room, and they said, "Hey, we're here to offer you the job." And I already had my mind made up, and I said on the spot, "All right, I want it. Where's the letter? Let me sign. Let's get this thing done." So I think that was on November 15th when I was officially a part of the Red Bull family. But again, just a huge testament to Chris's influence in my life. I personally am sitting here and saying I could not have been here without you, and just want to thank you for that.
Appreciate that, man. Really appreciate that.
So to segue into the second to last section, I want Chris to have the opportunity to speak about his employment history dating back to when you first started working, whatever your first job was, and kind of the progression you see yourself now, and then also whatever future plans that you have for yourself in your career and what goals you have set for yourself moving forward.
Yeah, sure. So, last summer was sort of my first internship experience. I was at a small private equity shop in my hometown, Stamford. There were really only like 4 people that worked there, so got a ton of experience with looking at different companies and deciding, what companies we were going to try and invest in. And funnily enough, about a week ago, my boss texted me that he had just purchased one of the companies that I had originally looked at and decided to tell him to pursue further, and I actually wrote the initial offer for it. So he's actually now the CEO of that company. It's a survey software company based in Montreal, Canada, actually. So it was really cool to see my work kind of come full circle like that, and to now see him as the CEO of a huge company. So that's really awesome. And then right now I'm actually down in Charleston, South Carolina. Nice weather down here, must say. It gets a little hot in the summer though. And having a good time working at an healthcare investment bank called Allen Mooney Barnes. First week was a bit slow, but it'll start picking up, doing some cool industry research, updating some presentations that they have, and also helping out with their financial modeling a little bit. So hopefully should be a good learning experience. Definitely going to start to get more responsibilities as I prove myself here until the end of July. So certainly got a lot of time to do that, and looking forward to learning more about the healthcare industry, which is what the bank focuses on over the next couple months. And then in terms of my future, look, I don't think anyone really knows exactly what they want to do right after college. And I know everyone says that, and it's super cliche in many ways, but I'm just looking to go somewhere where I feel as though I'll get exposure to a wide variety of companies, a wide variety of situations, and really learn the most. As you can probably gather, since I've worked in private equity and investment banking, I'm into finance, so really enjoy analyzing companies from a financial perspective. So, the most obvious choice is investment banking, which is what probably 40% of kids from Wharton go into, or something absurd like that. But so I think that might probably be where I end up right out of school. Definitely would obviously like to go to private equity if possible as well, but that's certainly a little tough to do directly from college, just because you typically don't have a lot of experience, but it is possible. So we'll see. But yeah, that's sort of my history and where I see myself going over the next couple of years.
There you go. I think 2 of the greatest lessons that you guys can learn from Chris and his stories that he tells us, something that I've learned from him, is that number 1, it's all about connections, especially in business, but in any field you go into, it's all about who you know, the relationships you build with people, and the connections that you broadly chase after and go after as you go through even high school, college, and your professional career. And the second thing is that it's okay to not know what you want to do, but it's not okay to not be passionate about something. If you guys can tell, Chris is passionate about finance. He's passionate about other things in his life just based off the things that he said in his bio. So even though there's a lot of people and a lot of you out there that don't know what you want to do with your life, just follow your passions, and your passions will lead you to something great in the future. And so that was a super serious note. So I'm going to end on 2 non-serious notes. The first thing is, I think we have a little time for any type of story that you would like to share that you would deem both appropriate and funny and kind of describes our relationship, or anything that was kind of telling of our past couple of years that we've known each other.
Yeah, sure. And one of the funniest things is I'm sure some of you listeners know Hoff dropped a song, guess it was almost 2 years ago at this point, called LEO, which stands for Love Each Other, right?
Yeah.
And so, I thought it was a banger, like for a first song. It was well done, production might have needed some work, but I mean, in terms of the lyrics and stuff, it was pretty good, pretty solid. But I remember we were driving to one of the club baseball games with Fisher, who I mentioned earlier, and I was like, oh, like, let's pop in the song, kind of as a joke. But Fisher was like, yeah, like, I want to hear this. And so we pop it in, and, he's listening, and at the end, he's just like, what the hell was that? And it was just really funny. And there's a line in there that goes, like, Martin Luther King, he was a savage, and Fisher was making fun of that. And I remember on the way back from the game, we passed like an exit sign on the highway, and it said like, Martin Luther King Freeway or Expressway, whatever it was. And I was like, oh, like there's your MLK right there. So that's like a funny story that is definitely appropriate.
And speaking of MLK being a savage, not only did that happen that club baseball season, but now it reminded me of another quick story where when we were out there in Fredericksburg playing in that tournament, it was in the last game, and Fisher's ERA that season, he was one of our pitchers, was like 89. Like, that was his ERA.
He was giving home runs left and right.
He gave up a home run every single game. And so it was an inning just after he had given up a home run, and the other team was laughing at him. And I felt bad. He was my boy. I had to protect him. So I went up to bat the next inning, and I hit a grounder, and I was just running it out because I was mad. And this one guy at first base decided to start running at me with the ball in his glove, and I didn't realize he was doing it because I was running with my head down until about 3 steps closer to first base, and I absolutely ran him over. And it was funny at that moment, but then I got thrown out by the umpire in a club baseball game. I'm the only person in Penn Club baseball history to ever be thrown out of a game. I've never been ejected from a basketball game. I've never even got a technical foul in basketball. I've never been thrown out of anything. That was my first experience. I remember just getting thrown out and laughing because I'm like this big fat guy running down first base, just like colliding with somebody. He thought it was on purpose or malicious. And all the parents were standing up on the other team because, of course, the other team's parents show up and no one from our team because it's club baseball. Who cares? And they're just standing up, clapping their hands like, yeah, get him out of here. And I'm just like, all right, this is just comedic. Like, this is the best way to cap that trip. So thank you for reminding me of that story.
That was funny. I forgot about that.
Oh my gosh. It was insane. But I know our time is now limited. It's almost over here because we're at the last question. And I told Chris before this because we talked before the interview, and I said, I have these questions I'm going to ask you. You can prepare your answers any way, but I am going to do what most finance companies do. And they ask you a question that you're not prepared for, that you have to do, and just rely on your intuition and your background knowledge on certain things. So I have a very important question to you, and I'm going to ask you this question, and not only am I going to ask you this question, I'm going to answer it myself. So the question that I'm going to ask you first is, what do you believe the Fed should do with interest rates?
Oh, boy. Am I supposed to answer this, or do you want to answer this?
No, I have my answer. My answer has been cemented in my brain for months, and I will tell you.
Yeah, I think the Fed should hold the interest rates constant. That's certainly my perspective on it. What's your perspective on it?
See, my thing is, I completely agree that they should remain constant, but I'm going to go even a step further. I'm going to explain my answer. So the reason that the Fed should keep the interest rates constant is because of widespread uncertainty, number one. That's always a big factor. And number two, inflation. So for those two reasons specifically, I think that the Fed should keep interest rates, and there we go, I messed it up, just like I messed it up in the presentation,
yeah,
constant.
Can't argue with that.
If you guys want to know what that funny question, that's like an inside joke, was we were giving a presentation in that finance class, and I'm not really smart, so I didn't really contribute a ton to the presentation, but my group was so funny that they had me read the last slide, and that was what was on the last slide, what the Fed should do with interest rates. And so that's that little joke to end.
Do you remember the interest rate range right now?
Oh yeah, it's was it 2 to 2.25?
I think it's 2.25 to 2.5, but I could be wrong.
Okay, well, I don't remember. I ended up getting a B in that class, surprisingly. And, of course, Chris got an A because he's super genius. But that's all the time we have for this section because that's all the questions that I came up with. But I think it was awesome for you to come on here and be the first guest. I definitely wanted to get you on here to be the first guest because out of everybody, excluding my family who probably wouldn't want to come on my podcast anyway, have played the biggest role in my life as far as my successes moving forward, what I'm currently enjoying right now. And I think that hopefully the audience was able to see that you're awesome, as I want them to listen and hear all the special guests that we have. But you got a special place in my heart. So I know I'll have some other guests in the future, but that's why I wanted to get you on first. And I'm happy you were able to share your story. I learned some more about you, and you're able to reminisce on some old times. So thank you for your time, and we'll be keeping in contact for years to come.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the kind words, and hopefully I make it out to LA to visit you pretty soon.
There we go, man. 1 month we'll be out there.
That's
partying
right.
Our butts off. Just kidding. We'll be doing work. All right.
Grinding.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So for this last portion of the podcast, I think it's only fitting to speak about a certain topic that comes up when I speak about Chris and some other people in my life, and that is the topic of influence. Now, just like the other podcasts, I don't really have anything written down for this. I just speak from my heart, because this, above everything else that I would talk about in different podcasts, is something that I really am staying true to, something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and I feel is the key and sometimes the demise of people who I've encountered in my life, been friends with, not friends with, people that I have just had the chance to learn about their lives and see them go down different pathways. Unfortunately, sometimes the wrong pathway. And so that is why I think this is super important, because not only have mostly my parents, but also people like Chris in my life influenced me in a positive way to get me to all the successes that I've had in my life to this point. But I think it's more important to speak about this because I've seen it more in a negative light, where people surround themselves with horrible influences that do bad things, put them in bad situations. And I'm speaking from my personal point of view, because my entire life has been that, is choosing between surrounding myself with people that will make me feel more comfortable, I think, but will definitely be bad influences, or choosing the hard route of trying to find those people like Chris, like my family, who are going to have my back, who are going to influence me in all of the right ways and make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to be the best person I can be every single day. And I'm not saying that these people who are in my life are perfect. They're no way perfect. And Chris will tell you that. And my parents, my siblings will tell you that. Nobody's perfect. But when it comes to influence, you have to look at yourself and the people you hang around and the people whose decisions that you value, the decision making of those who might be leading you down the wrong path, and do what needs to be done in order to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes they're making, and you cling to those people who are going to be there to support you, who are going to be there to be positive influences for you in your life. And with that all being said, I want to start this session with a personal anecdote from my life. Little mild story, because I don't want to get into anything serious and divulge my personal life, but I can be honest about this because it's something I'm not proud of, and it's something that is a result of somebody who is a bad influence on me. And to respect this person, I would like to make them nameless. However, I will just I will generically describe them as somebody who I was good friends with in college. So this was somebody I was good friends with in college. We did a lot of stuff together. We were really good friends. And I used to get bullied all the time when I grew up for a lot of different reasons, whether it was because I didn't drink alcohol, whether it was I wasn't smoking or I wasn't swearing, things like that. I'm going to use that last example for this story because it's kind of what happened with swearing, because most people come up and swear. They hear their parents swear, their friends swear. They're like, oh, it's just words. I'm just going to say it no matter what. I was somebody who respected the people around me, respected the young ears of people around me, and knowing that there was just no need to do it. It was just a way to sound cool and to fit in with the crowd, and that I know for a fact that my parents knew that I was swearing, that it was just not a good look on me, and it's not who I wanted to be. So I went into college knowing that 100% I'm not going to be that kind of guy. And there was a bunch of things I did with that, whether it was drinking, just like the other examples that I used. There were things in my life that I knew for a fact that I wanted to keep doing those things or not doing those things for better terms, because I knew that's who I was. I knew that's who I wanted to be. And I was very comfortable in my own skin in doing those things. Unfortunately, me and this friend got very close. He doesn't really exactly have the greatest mouth, and so I was surrounded and influenced in a way that made me speak a certain way. And I've had this conversation with my parents before, because they've used to check out my streams from time to time, and they'd see me not go off the deep end, but say a few choice words whenever I would get killed in a battle or didn't think that anyone was watching. They just kind of said, what happened to all this? I thought you were someone who didn't swear. What's going on? And I couldn't really think of what was good. I think it was just like, I was like, oh, I'm maturing. I'm getting older. This isn't really a big deal. I was using a lot of excuses to justify why I was doing this. And so it wasn't until me and this friend had a falling out that I looked back at my life. And that's just a mild example I'm giving you. There's a bunch of other examples in my life of how this person influenced me. And I was able to look back at it now that we're not friends and realize that that's not who I wanted to be. A lot of the things that I did, that's not who I am. And so, unfortunately, I just had to wait until that friendship was over to realize this. A lot of you guys are probably in friendships with people you can look around that are doing things that aren't who you are. They're would maybe be categorized as bad influences, making decisions and putting you in situations that you would rather not be in, and could make you make really bad decisions. But the one thing that I've learned is that you're never trapped in that situation. I know sometimes you might feel that you are. You might feel that you're in a boyfriend or girlfriend relationship with somebody that you can't get out of. Or you're with a group of friends that your livelihood is based on them, and so you want to please them and act like them. And if you decide to not act like them, they might make fun of you, which has happened to me before. And they might see you as not one of the boys or not one of the girls or something like that. But unfortunately, this one friend that I had, the biggest thing that we fought about was I saw some of the people that he hung out with, and I thought that they were bad influences on him. And so I called him out a couple times, and we had fights here and there. And my whole goal was not to make him feel like he was a bad person or make him feel like he was doing something wrong. My goal was just, I wanted to see this person happy. I wanted to see them successful in life, because they had a lot of things to be celebratory in their life. And personally, I thought that me and my friend Chris, who you guys just heard talk, were great influences on him. Whenever he listened to us, that he would do the right thing and he would have a worldly outlook, and he was a very smart kid. But anytime he got around certain people, it just was like a light switch, and he flicked it off, which then caused a lot of conflict with us, and now we're separated. And I don't know what the end of that story will be, but I've just seen too many times people close to me, people who I've been friends with, people who I've known, people who I've run into, that change their ways from who they truly are. And when you become friends with someone, you become really close with someone, you know who they truly are. You know their true colors. You know what they value. You know what they want to do in life. You know what they love and what they value. And when you see them start to waver from that and start to act different, it's only common as a friend to ask them about it and say, hey, like, what's going on here? So my point is that whether you like it or not, whether you think you're strong enough or not to withstand temptation or to control your life or to control your friends or change somebody, the people you surround yourself with are probably not going to change. They are who they are. And the only thing that you can do about it is change your mindset and try to surround yourself with people who, I said in the last podcast, are going to help you get to your goals, not knock you down, put you in good situations, and help you make the right decision. And so if I've learned anything in my life, I think this is like the moral of all human trouble, to be honest, because attitude is everything. As I said in the first episode, your attitude affects the way you think, affects the way that you act, affects the way that you view everything in your life. And so when you surround yourself with people who change that attitude for the worse or influence that attitude that you know that you have in a bad way, you're just going to fail in life. And it's not until people get to a point in life where they've failed enough to where they want it to stop that they look at their life, and I promise you most of them look at the people that they are around. And this is a very famous quote from George Washington. My dad tells me all the time, "It is better to be alone than in the company of bad men or women." And it's completely true. There are a lot of fears, and I can tell you this as somebody who only has one really good friend, who is Chris. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but now that I'm talking about this point of influence, I can talk about that part of my life. Chris is my only really good friend. And there's a lot of consequences that come with me for that. I struggle with mental health a lot because I felt alone, because Chris is supposed to go out and do the things that he wants to do and live his life, and he shouldn't have to walk around feeling like he has to be with me all the time and hang out with me all the time and tend to all my needs, even though he does a very, very, very good job, a better job than I could ever ask him to do, to make sure I'm okay, and obviously to help me in any way that he can. But it's too much to ask of somebody to be there for me that much. And so there are, I'm not going to lie, a lot of consequences to choosing the harder route of maybe distancing yourself from people who are bad influences. But it makes it easier when you go and you search for people who are going to be good influences on you. Because I can promise you that you might not think that they're out there, but there are definitely people out there who will care about you, who will value your opinions and your goals, who will respect you, who will have your back, and they're out there. You just have to search for them. The first step in getting away from bad influences is acknowledging that they are bad influences, but then what you actually have to go out and do is find people who are positive influences, who are going to do all the things that I just said, and your life will be different. If there's one, as I said, one life lesson that I've had to learn the hard way, is that your behavior, your actions are hugely tied to the people you're around. Just do a thought exercise right now with me. Think about all the people that you're friends with, that you spend your time with, that you text, that you Snapchat, that you communicate with. Think about their actions, both good and bad, but mostly bad. Think about their bad decisions they make, the things that they do in life that you're not proud of, and think, how much do I try to imitate them? Why? And then why am I trying to imitate them? Am I trying to impress them? Am I trying to fit in? What's really the key to that satisfaction that you're trying to get from people who are just constantly tearing you down and leading you down the wrong path? And I challenge you to look at your friends and all the people that surround you and not grade them, but really see, okay, is this person helpful? Are they helping me make good decisions? Are they helping me make bad decisions? And then the third part of that, after you acknowledge and you address, is to take action. And that can be in a variety of ways, whether it's cutting off the amount of time you hang out with those people, hanging out with certain people, and then when it goes to the environments that you are not comfortable in, kind of just dipping out, being like, I know who I am, I'm going to make these decisions, I'm going to go. Or go and find people who are just like you, who want to build you up, who want to help you be successful. And the best way to do that is to go out and just live your life. Find what you're passionate about. Live your life. Go to those places. If you love basketball, go play pickup basketball at the gym. You might find some good friends. Go to NBA basketball games. Go to college basketball games. Explore your interest. If you're interested in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, which I was at one point in my life, go find a way to get into that community. Go link with people who have common interests with you. And what you'll find out of the billions and billions of people on this earth, that the, let's say, 5 to 8 good friends that you have, there are way better ones out there that are going to help you make better decisions, are going to be better influences on yourself, and you're going to look back and not have to learn the hard way like I did. That's my goal in relaying this message to you all, is that I don't want you to have to learn the hard way. I want you guys to find those positive influences in your life, cling to them, because they are going to be so important in your success in life. And I cannot thank my family, especially my parents and Chris, for helping me stay grounded amongst all of the different challenges that I faced in college and I'm facing now. and keeping me grounded and keeping me having my eye on the prize and on my goals, because that's the most important. And so, as a final wrap-up note, the most important thing I can tell you on any podcast is influence is important. The people you hang around and the people you choose to spend time with are going to greatly affect the way that you live your life. So if they greatly affect the way you live your life, make sure that you're hanging out with high-quality people who are going to make you strive for success and meet and reach your max potential. So there we go. Another episode in the book. This has been awesome. I always love talking. I know it's funny that I'm not talking to you guys, but I technically am talking to you guys in this podcast. I do pre-record these, so it's not like I'm speaking to you guys live, and you guys can comment and let me know what you guys think of the things that I'm saying. But I do really appreciate any feedback that you guys have. You guys can leave it down in the comment section if you guys are on YouTube. And as a marketer, I always appreciate any type of sharing, communicating of my podcast to people that you know that you think would be interested in these different types of topics. This week was awesome, just like the past couple of weeks. And what's great about a podcast is that I make all these episodes, and if you miss an episode a week, or you might not be as interested in one of the topics for 1 week, you don't have to be forced to listen to it. And with every single week, I'll just continue to add to the resume of episodes on the Hoffcast that you guys can find stuff that interests you. And the best way for me to talk about what interests you is to become a guest on my podcast, which Chris just did. It's very simple. Just reach out to me, just like we did. I FaceTimed him. We used AirPods to listen. He recorded his voice with voice memo, and then he sent it in. And I know that school and his career is very important to Chris, so I wanted to give him a chance to speak about that and the importance of that in his life. So if you guys have anything that's important to you, anything that you guys would want to talk to me about, hit me up in the DMs, text me, call me, anything you guys want. I want to try from this point on to have a special guest every single week. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know. So with all of that said, if you guys are on YouTube, make sure to leave a like on this video and to share it no matter what platform you guys are listening it to. Hopefully you guys look forward to next week, and I will see you guys in the next episode.